Hi, I'm Jonah, and this is a Learn to Play tutorial for House of the Rising Sun. I really like this song because it's somewhat of a simpler song to learn, but that allows for a lot of embellishment, and you can take this and put your own twist on it. And a lot of us know this song as well, and if you don't, look it up online. You can listen to it and get a good feel of what the song is supposed to sound like, which is helpful when learning a song. So I'm going to be playing this on a Condor bass flute in the key of D, but I think the original song is actually in A, but it really will sound good on any native flute. So with that, I'll play through the song once. I'll give a little introduction onto how to use these tutorials, and then we'll move into the tutorial itself. Now, the easiest way that I find to learn songs is to walk through them phrase by phrase. And a phrase is like the sentences that build the song. Essentially, each time you pause to take a breath, you've completed a phrase. And because in the music we've added these breath marks, you can easily see that the phrases begin and end at each of these breath marks. I've also noted the number of the phrases using these numbers with lines through them. Phrase 1, 2, and so on. As I walk through each phrase, I'll note anything that's unusual or particularly challenging in that phrase, and then I'll show you how to play it, and I'll play it at a really slow tempo. At that point, I'd suggest pausing the video and working on that phrase until you have the fingerings and the rhythm pretty well down at that slow tempo, and then move on to the next. Once we've moved through the whole song, I'd suggest going back to the beginning and working through each phrase again. And slowly, each time you do that, bringing it up to tempo. House of the Rising Sun is a relatively straightforward song. It's based in the pentatonic scale, which is that scale that we all learn when we're first learning to play the native flute, so all the notes will be pretty familiar to you. It's also a straightforward rhythm, being composed mostly of quarter notes and half notes and a few eighth notes mixed in. Now, the one thing that's a little different is it's based on a 3/4 time. And I know that because of this time signature right here. This fraction here, 3/4, is called the time signature. And what this tells us is it gives us an idea of the rhythm of the song. And the top number, the 3, tells us how many beats there are per measure. And so this is a measure between this line and this line. And within that, there's going to be 3 beats. And you can see that here we have a half note, which gets 2 beats, and a quarter note, which gets 1. And to clarify that a bit more, each measure starts on beat 1. And in this sheet of music, each measure has 3 beats within it. So the time signature is going to tell us how many beats there are per measure. And the most common time signature is 4/4. So in that time signature, we have 4 beats per measure. And they're different in the way that they feel, and that's what the time signature is telling us. In a 4/4, or the most common time signature, it sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the time signature of most of today's music. And it's also the time signature of the music that you likely dance to when you go out dancing. Where a 3/4 will sound like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is called the waltz. This is the time signature of the waltz. And so this song, The House of the Rising Sun, has more of that waltz kind of a feel to it. Now the bottom number, the 4 on the bottom, tells us which note gets the beat. And in this case, it's a quarter note. Most of the music that we play on the native flute has a 4 on the bottom, and it's more of a complex idea than I'm going to get into here. If you want to learn more about it, there's plenty of information online about that. The first phrase is a pretty straightforward phrase, but if you're a beginner and you haven't been playing the native flute for that long, I think the most challenging thing you'll find here is what I call jumping notes. And this is where you're opening or closing more than one hole at a time. And so, for example, going from this note to this note, you're opening 2 holes at the same time. Or going from this note to this note, you're closing 2 holes at the same time. So if you haven't had much experience with that, this will be a good song for learning some of that, and it'll really open up the possibilities of your flute playing in your just general day-to-day playing as well. In phrase 2, we move along in a very similar rhythm as in the first phrase, where we have this quarter note, half note, quarter note, half note, and then we hit these eighth notes. And what I find in general I tend to do, and people often tend to do, is to not give the eighth note their due amount of time. So you really want to try and split that beat in half. And so if I was to count this measure out and then move into the next measure, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I'd suggest is working on giving the eighth notes, and each note for that matter, its allotted time. And then once you learn how to play by the rules, you can take creative license and break the rules in a way that really sounds good. The exception to that would be at the end of a phrase, where you need to cut the last note a little short in order to be able to grab a breath and start the next phrase on beat. And that's a good rule of thumb. End a phrase early if it's necessary in order to grab a breath, and then start the next phrase on beat. In the third phrase, we start with 2 eighth notes, and then we move into that half note, quarter note rhythm that pretty much makes up the song. And then we move into this measure here, which has 2 eighth notes and 2 quarter notes. And for some reason, I kept wanting to change notes when I was first learning the song, between right after this note moving into this note. So if you're having challenges with that, just take a little extra time to try and teach your fingers not to change notes and to just keep playing the same note through this section, and then moving down here in this quarter note and into this half note. The fourth phrase, or the last phrase of the song, is the most simple phrase throughout the whole song. And you're holding the same note as you move from here to here, and then we're going down and down to end the song. Little wind trying to steal a voice there at the end. one thing I really enjoy about this song is that because it's simple, it didn't take very long for my fingers to pick up the notation. I could catch the rhythm pretty easily. And then I was able to start playing with embellishing on the song, finding areas where I can add a flutter in here, or maybe even change a note here or there. For example, in phrase 4 here, on this note here, I think it sounds really good to move that down one note, to close one finger down and then move into the next section. So there's a lot of space in this song to be creative with it. You're also playing just one verse of this whole song, which sometimes, depending on the version you listen to, there's anywhere from 4 to 7 or 8 verses of the House of the Rising Sun. So when you're finished here, you start at the beginning again, and each time you can embellish a little bit differently and give it your own creative flair. You'll also find online there's some really good backing tracks for this song, and so you can start playing this song over a backing track where somebody else is playing the background music for this song. So although it's a simple song, I think it has a lot of potential for creativity and enjoyment.